Good morning, everybody. I first would like to introduce Steve from the Ohio BWC. Good morning, Steve.
Before I go to the PwC announcements for this month, I want to give a few minutes to Kathleen Davenport with PwC to introduce a new and exciting program. Kathleen.
Thanks, Steve, for yielding some of your time to me. I talked about this program a couple times in the past, I think, with the South Metro Safety Council, but I just wanted to talk about it again for just a few minutes because we've made some changes. It's the Substance Use Recovery and Workplace Safety Program. We made some changes at the end of December to where we rolled out the program statewide. The program had been in Montgomery County for a couple years prior to this, but we've rolled it out statewide. Montgomery County was one of the pilots, and I've talked about it before. But some of the highlights of this program is this a reimbursement program that will reimburse you for some of the costs associated with your drug testing program. It reimburses for drug-free policy development. It reimburses for legal review of your drug-free workplace policy. If you have employee education and supervisor training related to your drug-free workplace program, it reimburses for that. And it also now reimburses up to $1,500 a year for drug testing itself. That would be your pre-employment, post-accident, reasonable suspicion, follow-up to treatment, any type of drug testing that you do either for your current employees or your prospective employees in the case of the new hire or pre-employment. And so it's a great opportunity to take advantage of that program. Depending on the county you're in, a lot of you guys are in Montgomery County and you would apply directly with the Montgomery County ADAMH. The process is very simple, that you enroll with us and you just have to be in good standing with us. That's the only criteria. You can be in any program. You don't have to be in our drug-free workplace program. You can be in group rating, group retro, individual retro, any of the deductible programs. So it's very flexible. Every employer would qualify as long as you're not self-insured. That's the only criteria, is that you're not a state agency or self-insured. Therefore, you know, I really encourage you, a lot of employers are doing drug testing. Take advantage of this opportunity and get some of those costs reimbursed to you. And so I encourage you, I'll put some information in the chat, and I encourage you to contact me directly if you guys are interested. We just did a webinar yesterday on a guidance webinar to help those that had submitted their applications to get through the process. The process is pretty quick and pretty simple. So I really encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to enroll in the program. I'll put that my contact information in the chat, and it's really simple. So I will turn it now back to Steve. Thanks, Steve, for allowing me a few minutes.
Thank you, Kathleen, for being able to join us this morning. It's very nice. I'm very happy to announce that BWC safety consultants, ergonomists like myself, and industrial hygienists are back in the field. If you have health and safety concerns or issues that you would like some assistance with, please give us a call and we'll schedule those on-site consultations. Registration is now open for the 2022 Ohio Safety Congress and Expo. OSC 22 is completely online this year. It includes new features for more choice, more convenience, and more value. Visit ohiosafetycongress.com to register for the event, which will stream live March 9th and 10th. More than 4,000 representatives from Ohio businesses and government are expected to attend and discover strategies and tools for a healthy, safe, and productive workforce. OSC 22 offers topics in business strategy, innovation, compliance, and workers' compensation. You can visit the Digital Expo Marketplace, compete in a scavenger hunt, download resources, and earn attendance credits, and even continuing education credits if you need those. And we also have an Ask the Expert section as well. Registration is free, and like I said, that's at ohiosafetycongress.com. The OSHA injury and illness reports are due. So employers must electronically send their 2021 injury and illness data from your OSHA 300A log by March 2nd. That's March 2nd. And this applies to those who have 250 or more employees and you're currently required to maintain the OSHA injury and illness records, or for those who have 20 to 249 employees classified in specific industries with historically high rates of occupational injury and illness. You can visit OSHA's injury tracking application webpage for more information and to submit your data online. I've got a full list of upcoming Division of Safety and Hygiene distance learning opportunities. Yet this month, we have two webinars yet. We have on February 17th, Record Keeping 201. This is a follow-up to our 101 webinar. This is 201, Pitfalls in OSHA Record Keeping. So that's going to be in the afternoon of February 17th. February 22nd, we have the OSHA on-site consultation, Ohio's best kept secret. That's going to be at 11 a.m. on the 22nd. And I'll give you a little preview. Usually I don't go this far out, but on March 24th, so next month, we have a webinar titled Ergo Office, Even at the Home. And I bring this up because myself and my colleague, Brad Ridenhour, will be delivering that webinar. So if you want to see what I do on the other side of my job besides this, feel free to attend that webinar. Let's see, on our virtual training classes, these are the classes that are a little longer, use either half day to even full day or multi-day classes. So on February 15th, we have lockout, tagout, and safety-related work practices. February 16th, emergency preparedness planning. February 16th to the 18th, a multi-day class on trenching and excavation. February 22nd, 23rd, safety for the non-safety professional. February 24th, crisis de-escalation tactics and safe practices workshop. It's a big month. And then on February 28th, we have module 4. So I don't know if anyone out there has taken the HAZWOPER class, the Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response Series. So module 4 is going to be on February 28th. If you're interested in attending the BWC and any of these BWC classes, visit the BWC Learning Center at bwclearningcenter.com. These classes, Ohio Safety Congress, great way to earn BWC program credits. So if you need any program credits for maybe industry specific safety program or whatever group rating, whatever it may be, great way to earn those credits by attending Safety Congress or any of these online classes. That's what I have this month. As far as BWC announcements, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Our speaker this morning is Officer Ed Skinner. Officer Skinner has served in law enforcement for 27 years, including 25 years with the Centerville Police Department. He has worked in patrol as a school resource officer and is currently the community relations officer. Officer Skinner is a certified prevention specialist through the Ohio Crime Prevention Association and a certified security assessment specialist through the American Crime Prevention Institute. He is also an evidence technician, field training officer, and a technical crash investigator. Please join me in welcoming Officer Skinner.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me here, and thank you to the South Metro Chamber for putting this together. What I have for you today is some sort of an overview of crime prevention, some specific techniques and applications that you can use for your business. Understand also that the things we're going to talk about would also translate to your personal life or your personal residence. So it's information that you can use really across, throughout your life. So again, a little bit about me that's already been covered. So what we're talking about is crime prevention. And to start with a definition, this is a definition from 1972 from the National Crime Prevention Institute. And it really continues to be the gold standard for the definition of crime prevention. And very simply, it's the anticipation, recognition, and appraisal of a crime risk, and the initiation of some action to remove or reduce it. So it's important that we understand that this is not a one and done type thing. So we're not doing a single appraisal of our current situation, but it's really developing a prevention mindset and letting it influence the actions that we take every day, again, in our personal lives or our business. The big thing with developing this mindset is it's going to give you the, not only going to reduce your personal exposure to becoming a victim of a crime, but also can have the added benefit of potentially reducing your liability exposure for your business. So we'll cover, I'll give you some specific examples of that as we move through. So This is called the crime triangle, and I like to show this because in order to have a crime, the center of this triangle here is going to be the crime. You fill in the blank. So it can be a theft, robbery, burglary. In order for a crime to occur, you have to have three components. So you have to have a suspect or a person with a desire to commit the crime. You have to have a victim of the crime, and you have to have a location or an opportunity for that crime to occur. Now, the suspect or the person with a desire to commit the crime, we really don't have much influence over that person. Criminals are criminals. They're going to seek any opportunity that they can to victimize you. And likewise, the victim of the crime is something that's selected by that suspect. So we have very little control over the actual victim. The area where we have the greatest impact is in that location or opportunity for a crime. So how do we reduce that location or opportunity? That takes us to the 4 Ds of crime prevention. These are going to be deter, delay, deny, and detect. And despite being called the 4 Ds of crime prevention, there's actually a 5th D that's, again, recognized nationwide, and that's called devalue. So we're going to spend our time here early on covering that. Later on in the presentation, Julia had asked me to talk a little bit about counterfeit currency detection. So we're going to talk about that, and then also a little bit about situational awareness and personal safety. So let's start with our deterrence strategy. Deterrence is essentially making the criminal look elsewhere for easy pickings. You know, criminals are just like anybody else. It's a risk versus reward scenario that they're deciding on if they're going to commit a crime or not. So our goal is to make it riskier for the criminal to commit that offense. So we start with the physical appearance. Again, this could be your business or this could be your personal residence. The physical appearance of the property is key. These are 2 photographs of the exact same building in different states of repair. But ask yourself when you look at these photographs, is this a place that someone cares about? Having a property that's overgrown or lots of junk sitting around lends the impression that it's not occupied, that there's nobody living there, that the building is empty, and that's going to invite criminal activity. From a physical standpoint, the picture on the left, you look at the overgrowth, not only is it unsightly, but it gives the criminals a place to work. It gives them a place to camouflage themselves and gives them a place to go about potentially trying to break into your place undetected. On that same topic, there's some landscape recommendations. Again, these are national crime prevention standards. On the right of the picture there, that would be the actual structure, and then to the left is going to be the roadway or the sidewalk to the business. So any landscaping that you have in front of the property within 6 feet of the sidewalk or roadway should be no taller than 2 feet. And then as you move beyond that 6 feet closer to the structure, you don't want any plantings to exceed 3 feet in height. Any shrubbery that you have should be kept trimmed to the 3 feet. And then any landscaping that you would have up around the windows of the building surrounding should be trimmed to 6 inches below the windowsill. So again, you're preventing that opportunity for a criminal to have a place to go in and hide and try to gain access to your building. We also encourage the use of barrier plants. So these are your thorny or prickly bushes. Again, these around window openings are a great thing because there's no criminals are going to take the opportunity to weed through inch-long thorns to get up to your building. So barrier plants can also be used for other areas around the property that you want to protect or you want to try to keep people away. Lighting is a very big issue. I mentioned earlier about potential liability exposure for your business. You can see in this photograph here, the carport area is very well lit. It allows for good natural surveillance. As you move into other areas of the parking lot, you have darker locations where, again, gives criminals the opportunity to lurk about, gives them the camouflage to look into cars, break into cars, and then the offenses can escalate from there. It's potential sexual assault or something else could take place in that parking lot. So contrast that picture with this. So this is another commercial area. Again, the lighting is well lit throughout the parking lot. The benefits of this, it's going to create an impression of safety for your customers or your guests. Again, we're trying to increase that natural surveillance of the property, reducing the hiding spaces for criminals to operate. And if you have surveillance video on your property, it's going to really enhance the quality of that video. It's frustrating for law enforcement when we see poor quality video, and even though most surveillance systems have lower light cameras, having that little bit of light is going to really enhance the quality of it and make it much more usable. Our next strategy is delay, and here we're trying to delay entry to the property and heighten awareness. So by heightening awareness would be simply because we're delaying that entry of the person. It's going to create noise. It's going to create activity around the business that's not normal and will tend to draw attention. One of our delay strategies is consider the types of locks that you're using on your business. There's a total of 3 grades of locks. The lower the grade number is going to be the higher level of protection that you're going to get from that lock set. I see in a lot of older businesses that maybe a house that's been converted into a commercial property, they're still using a residential, that grade 3 type lock. They're much more easily breached by a suspect. So any business, you should really be using at a minimum a grade 2 lock, which again is the light commercial use. If you have high value inventory or you have a lot of expensive equipment in your building that would be desirable to a thief, you may want to consider the use of a grade 1 or a heavy commercial lock. That's going to be the picture at the bottom of the screen. This type of lock is much more secure. You can see that it actually has to be mortised inside the door. It offers a much better level of protection and resistance to tampering. Any deadbolt locks that you have should have a minimum of a 1-inch throw. Residential locks oftentimes will have a 3/4 inch throw, but you really want something that's at least 1 inch. I would encourage everybody to, whatever locks that you have, and do this at your house and your business, take time to take the screws out of the strike plate, which is that the part that actually attaches to the door frame. Most of these are installed with a 1-inch screw or a 2-inch screw. We would recommend that you replace those with a 3 or 4-inch screw. That's going to give you, it's actually going to bite more into the structure of the building and is going to increase the integrity of that opening. Also on doors, any doors that you have, you want to make sure they're solid core wood or steel. So just check those. Glazing materials are another option. Any place that you have high value inventory or equipment, these modern glazing materials are really amazing stuff. We have them on the police department. It's going to offer an extra level of protection. You can see the picture with the crowbar there. I would encourage you to go to YouTube and watch videos on there about this glazing material. There's videos with people with baseball bats, crowbars, working on these windows for 30 minutes before they're able to get into them. So extra level of protection. Glazing materials are also really good at the entry door locations where you maybe have side light glass, anything that's going to be breachable where they would be able to get in and potentially unlock the door. Glazing materials are a really good solution for that. So with denial strategies, we're looking to remove the opportunity for the crime to occur. Some of these can be very simple. Restrict the amount of cash you have on hand. If you don't have the cash there, then the bad guy can't steal it. Advertise the fact. If you don't keep cash or you keep very little cash, use signage like that. Some of these strategies we talk about are overlapping. So signage reflecting that you're not keeping cash can be denial, but it can also be a great deterrence strategy, which is the one that we started out with. You're making the criminal know that you don't keep cash there and that they're better off moving on to another location. Safes are a great denial strategy. Having the ability to secure if you do keep large amounts of cash that you don't have time to get to the bank, safes can be a great tool. There's fire safes and floor safes. I would encourage you to go to the Underwriters Laboratories website. They do extensive testing on safes and give them ratings based upon the difficulty of them being breached. They do ratings for tool, torch, and explosion, so there's all kinds of safes available depending on your need. Another rule with safes, anyone that you have that is under 750 pounds, the National Crime Prevention recommendation is that those safes be bolted down to the floor, secured to the structure somewhere to prevent them from being carried off. Access control is something that many of you may already use in your business for the exterior structures, but consider the use of it again with the high value inventory, keeping those separately secured, a room within a room kind of a concept where stores will do this, where they have expensive inventory and they'll keep that stuff locked away where separate access is needed by, it may be controlled, restricted to only certain employees. Also has the added benefit of restricting public access. These are available in the key fob that you see up there, or a card system, and then on the bottom is pictured a biometric reader. So some of you may already be using these for time clock type things with the biometric reader, but it's the same concept. Detect, this is trying to detect the crime before it occurs. These are going to be fairly obvious, but they're worth discussing. Alarm systems for unauthorized entry and fire. Alarm systems can also be a deterrence strategy if you have proper signage. I would encourage you to use a cellular backup system with your alarm. If it's not something you currently have, it's worth looking at. Any alarm system that is based on a telephone or internet-based system can be pretty easily cut and disabled from outside the structure. So having that cellular backup gives you that security. Surveillance systems, again, many of you are probably using these. They have the ability of providing real-time monitoring, recall of events. These are obviously very useful to law enforcement when we do have a crime reported to us. If you're going to be installing a new system, really take the time to look at the analog cameras versus the IP cameras. Analog systems are still widely available. They're relatively inexpensive, but the trade-off for that is that they are going to produce a much lower quality resolution. The resolution, some people put the cameras in because it gives them peace of mind, but ultimately a surveillance system is about being able to produce good quality video when it's needed. These analog systems, you may see a person, but any effort to enhance that picture or to zoom in, the video is going to very quickly pixelate and essentially become unusable. Analog cameras also for trying to read a license plate or something, it's pretty much not going to happen. So consider the more expensive, the IP-based systems where you're going to have much higher resolution. It's going to be a lot more usable to us. From a liability perspective, as I mentioned earlier, if you have a surveillance system in place, make sure that you're checking it regularly, make sure that it's operable. If you have a camera that's not working, you really should make efforts to cover that camera up, put a plastic bag or something over to show that it's not operable. When you have these systems in place in a business, there's an expectation that the cameras are working. If the cameras are there, then if someone were to be victimized on your property, could potentially open you up to a liability exposure if the system's not functioning properly. So cover that camera until you can get it replaced. Another word on liability is if you're advertising the fact that you have a surveillance system, take a look at the signage that you have. The sign on the left, this area is monitored by video surveillance. This gives the impression to people reading the sign that there's actually someone sitting there watching the cameras in real time. If they were to be victimized by a crime on your property with a signage like that, they have the expectation that as soon as they're victimized, somebody's seeing it and is going to be calling for help. Contrast that with the sign on the right. This is a generic sign. It just says that it's protected by video surveillance and spells out that the recordings are used to prosecute crimes committed on the property. Just check signage and make sure that you have something that's not over-promising. Our fifth D on our list of 4Ds, 4Ds is the national standard, but this fifth D is something that can be really effective from a crime prevention perspective. And the goal here is to devalue either the property itself or the target location, which could potentially be your business or residence. So retail businesses, obviously these ink tags are good. It's a devalue strategy because the thief knows that if they have to break that tag off of there without the proper equipment, it's going to damage the product and make it not able to be resold by them. So laser etching is something that's relatively inexpensive to do. If you take the time, if you have small electronic devices or other property, have it laser etched with your brand or your logo or something that's going to make it identifiable to you. Makes it much harder for a criminal to take that property and resell it, pawn it. And even if they were to pawn it, having that applied marking on there is going to really increase the likelihood that we can get the property back to you. The police department uses a system called Leads Online, which ties us into all of the pawn shops nationwide. So nearly all of them are using this system, and when they enter a property that they buy from somebody, they'll enter these, the owner applied markings, serial numbers, anything, but little things like that can really make it stand out when we go to do searches looking for property that's been stolen. We mentioned safes before, but I also like to mention time lock safes in particular as a devalue strategy. You see these a lot in convenience stores or gas stations. Again, advertising to the public that there's a time lock safe on the property, and most people know what that is. Large amounts of cash are not kept out and available for somebody to steal. They're secured inside this safe that has restricted access and is only able to be unlocked during certain times. And if you have one of those, advertise the fact, put that sign up. And this is going to really do a lot to devalue the location overall. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about counterfeit currency detection. All this information on the currency came off of uscurrency.gov, the federal government website that has the most updated information in terms of counterfeit currency detection. My first caution on detecting counterfeit currency is not to over-rely on the counterfeit detection pens. They certainly have their place and can be effective. They work by detecting a starch that's found in commercially produced paper, but counterfeiters can coat their counterfeit notes with substances that will counteract the pen. So really good counterfeiters, which we don't see these very often, but they can actually bleach lower denomination notes and then they will reprint the higher denomination onto them. So the paper that they're printed on is actually real currency paper, so it's not going to react to one of these pens. The big thing trying to detect counterfeit currency is, taking a quick look at it. They list here on the federal government website, if it has foreign writing on it, that could be fake. I think that's probably pretty obvious. Most people would detect that. The motion picture money, if you're not familiar with this, it's produced, allegedly the goal of it is to be used in video productions as fake money where they would need it. This is the kind of fake currency that we see most often passed. Really good counterfeit notes are very rare, but motion picture money is something that we see a lot. Here's an example of a $100 note. You can see on the top of the top note is the one that says for motion picture use only, and it has a bunch of other writing on there indicating that it's not real. But if you're in a high volume cash business, you can see where it would be pretty easy to overlook. So train your employees, if you're in that cash business, train them to look for this. This is, like I say, this is probably the one that we see the most. Determining if the note's real, feel the paper, and we're going to talk about all these in more detail, but feeling the paper, tilting the note, and checking it with light. Currency has a particular feel to it. It's not smooth, it has more of a rough texture. You can feel it. Sometimes it's too soft or too stiff, too thick or too thin. The size of the note sometimes is detectable just from handling it. You know, it may be a little smaller or a little larger than a normal note. Those are things that jump out. So if any of that stuff stands out to you, that's where you want to start to look at the security features. All of our currency has this color shifting ink. So if you're turning it in the light, just a quick shift of the note, the ink colors are going to change from that copper color that you see in the top photo to the more green. This is going to be on denominations of 10 or higher. Also on the $100 bill here, the ink in the inkwell there at the bottom of the note is going to also have that same shifting from copper to green color. The $100 notes have a special 3D security ribbon, which is the purple thing that kind of runs across the middle of the note. The bells that are printed into that note will actually change direction as you shift the note. And the best security features on money are these watermarks. Here's a $20 note. You can see Andrew Jackson's face. If you hold the note up to light, you can see his face coming through. These are things obviously that would be very difficult for an amateur counterfeiter to replicate. So the security thread also is going to run through. It's going to be visible, again, when you hold it up to light. And I have an example here in just a second of all the denominations. They're going to change color also when it's exposed to UV light. So having a little handheld black light or something that you could use to examine that would be another step you could take. These are pictures of all of the security threads in the different denominations. They all contain the letters USA, and then they will either contain a number, as you see on the $5 note there, as the number 5, and then the denomination will be spelled out. So you see on the $20 bill, it's actually spelled out with letters. Personal safety and security all comes down to situational awareness. It's very simply just being aware of your surroundings, knowing what's going on around you. This is something that police officers do all the time because we're trained to do that. I mean, it starts from our academy training. It's not being paranoid, it's just a matter of taking the time to look around. I'm sure you've all heard stories of police officers when they go into a restaurant with their family, they try to pick a seat location somewhere where the officer is facing the door, where they can see the entire room. Again, just keeping tabs on what's going on and giving yourself time to react, whether it's creating distance between yourself and a potential criminal, or the means to escape if need be. So transporting cash is probably one of the riskier things that businesses have to do in terms of taking the money from your business to the financial institution that you use. Some questions to ask yourself: who knows that you're going to be transporting the cash? Do you have disgruntled employees? Do you have employees who may have associates that are suspect or maybe not of the best character? So just understand who knows you're transporting this stuff. Think about that. Also, when do you go to the bank? Do you go to the bank the same time every day? Do you go every Tuesday and Thursday at noon on your lunch break? You want to mix those things up, vary the route that you're driving. Again, this isn't a matter of being paranoid, it's a matter of being situationally aware. Gives you opportunities to see if someone's following you, if you're taking different routes, increasing your reaction time to be able to make decisions. When you're taking the cash to the bank, are you using one of these bank bags? I think universally, almost everybody that would see one of these bags knows exactly what it is. It's a cash deposit bag that you're taking to the bank. So carrying this out in public increases the likelihood of making yourself a potential target. So instead, consider concealing that bag inside a briefcase, inside a big lunchbox, put it in a backpack. So just make it look like you're going about your everyday business and doing everything you can not to draw attention to yourself. When you arrive at the bank, this is the Day Our Credit Union on Dayton, Lebanon Pike at the south end of Centerville, take the time to look around. In this photograph that we see here, the financial institution's obviously on the left side of the screen there. This big brush line that you have along the side of the driveway here, those are opportunities or locations that somebody could potentially hide and try to rob you if you're transporting that cash. When you arrive up at the ATM or the night deposit, again, this photo, you can see you have a pretty limited natural surveillance because you have the brick wall that's concealing the dumpster. Then you have another building in the back, but all that shrubbery and brush you can see off to the right can create opportunities for criminals. This drive-through is no different than any other bank, but take the time to drive around the lot, especially if it's dark, before you drive up to that night deposit window. Just take a few minutes to drive around, see if there's anybody lurking about, see if there's any cars sitting around with people in them that don't really have a reason to be there. Do everything you can to make sure that it's safe before you approach that window. This is just an example, and again, this is very similar to any other financial institution, but you can see from where the night deposit is, just slightly ahead of where your car would be, is this little dead corner that would give the opportunity for somebody to hang out and to essentially ambush you. I bring this up in particular. We had a case, it's been many years ago, but there was a bank on North Main Street in Centerville where a lady drove up to the ATM 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning and just drove up to get some cash out. And a guy, there was an area of brush just to the east of where she was, and there was actually somebody in the bushes looking to rob somebody at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. So when this lady told her story, I would have bet any amount of money that it didn't happen that way. But once we went and pulled the surveillance video from the ATM itself, sure enough, you could see the guy hunkered down in the bushes, and before she knew it, he was on top of her, had a gun in her face, and forced her to withdraw all the money that she could from the ATM. So just things to think about. If you were to become a victim of robbery, if the worst should happen, our advice is obviously to cooperate. Most criminals are not looking to harm anyone. They're simply looking for a quick score, looking for that cash, and looking to make their getaway. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I hope you found this information beneficial. Feel free to contact me at the police department if anybody has questions that they don't want to ask publicly. Again, I'm Ed Skinner. You can reach me at Centerville PD. Thank you.